Hello, and welcome back. This week, we're going to be talking about the Macallan 12-year-old Sherry Oak Cask Aged Whiskey. This is the whiskey that made them famous. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week, so if you picked up a bottle, go grab it, get yourself a couple of glasses, and an extra glass of water, preferably bottled or purified, and then meet me back here for a drink on the Whiskey Dictionary. The Macallan is considered to be a Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. Now what that means is that it's made entirely out of malted barley, needs to be aged for at least 3 years in oak casks, and all of that needs to happen inside of Scotland, in this case the Highlands of Scotland. Now in 1824, a man named Alexander Reid, who was a barley farmer and a school teacher, decided he wanted to become a distiller. So he established the Easter Elchies estate, which is what this house here is, as well as on the top of the bottle. And speaking of the bottle, actually, let's go right into the nosing and the tasting this week. I find that this particular whiskey benefits from having a little bit of water added, which is why I already have this one out. I've actually let this sit because for the nose too, it helps to kind of just open up a little bit over a little bit of time. So go ahead and pour yourself a glass. I'm going to pour another just straight into this glass over here, which is my Scotch glass. And we'll do some nosing and drinking. So something I wanted to try this week is usually I show you the color, however I'm typically wearing some sort of colored shirt. So I grabbed a white piece of paper and I figured I'd try to do this, so hopefully this works. Macallan has a lot of variety in the color of their whiskeys, and as you can see this one's kind of like a dark hay color. It's pretty light, especially compared to some of their older whiskeys. So I've seen everything from like a light honey to like almost coffee black with some of their really old aged whiskeys. All right, so this one's the one with the water in it, this one is not. Go ahead and you can smell whichever one you want, but be aware that the one without any water in it, the alcohol might burn your nose a little bit, so don't inhale too deeply. But first of all, give it a smell, and then we'll talk about it. All right. So, hopefully you smelled something. If not, pause it, I guess, and take a couple more whiffs until you have some idea. So, for me personally, I actually can kind of smell like salt water, like the ocean almost. You get a little bit of oak in there, but mostly I smell alcohol, which sounds a little weird, but really that burning alcohol, it'll sting your nose if you take a really, really deep whiff. So I'm going to try the one that I put some water in and allowed to breathe for a minute, and you get a lot more out of it. So if you want to go ahead and try it, then be my guest. So, all right. First of all, that's way better. You can take a much deeper breath, and you can get a lot more. You get a little bit of fruit actually, but I still get a strong sense of like seawater, which is pretty cool. You get a little spice as well as maybe like a little honey. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, you get this has actually been sitting for a little while. You definitely get some honey out of there. So, all right. After that, go ahead and take a sip and do whichever one you'd like. I would suggest the one without water in it first, just to really get a sense of the whiskey. But cheers. So, you definitely get that spice that I was mentioning. It's a little bit, for me personally, it's a little harsh on my throat. Not terrible though, but you definitely get some spice and some of that salt water. Go ahead and move on to your other one that you've diluted a little bit. Oh, sorry. You'll want to have a sip of water first. Always got to cleanse the palate in between whiskeys. All right. Now, as far as that goes, I actually get a lot of the exact same flavors. They're just more subtle. So I wouldn't say that the adding of water really affects the taste too much in this one, but it makes a dramatic change in the smell, which most whiskey tasting notes will tell you that that's exactly what that's for, is adding whiskey, other than diluting it and maybe not getting you drunk, really isn't going to do a whole heck of a lot for taste. It does a world for smell. So continue to drink your whiskey, and I'll do like I normally do, tell you a little bit about the history of the Macallan here. Now, the Macallan is kind of neat. Like, so they have their own estate, which, as I was talking about earlier, the Easter Elchies estate. And they actually used to grow all of their barley on the estate. Eventually, they ended up getting huge, as you probably have heard of the Macallan. They ended up having to contract out the growing of their barley to something like 40 different farmers. It's just a ton of barley. But that makes sense. However, they still use their the Spey River, which is a world famous salmon fishing river, I guess. I mean, I know I've heard of the Spey River, but I'm not much of a fisherman, so I've never heard of the salmon aspect. But either way, they still use the same water for making the Macallan. And I guess their estate abuts it. So they have these copper stills, which I think there were 14 of them, which are apparently pretty famous over in Scotland. And actually, for the 300th anniversary of the Bank of Scotland, they actually made a whole series of these banknotes based around working men of Scotland. And the copper pots were they were featured on the back of the 10-pound note. So, I don't know, I think that's kind of neat. As far as when they're going ahead and distilling it, they use these copper pots, and they're pretty selective about what they actually take from the new make, which I haven't gone into this before. When you create whiskey, after you've fermented it and everything, when you're going through the stills, the clear liquid that comes out of it, a lot of people call that new make or white dog, or there's a couple of other names for it. And you'll see actually a lot of new distilleries releasing that particular liquid as their first run, because they need to make money in order to, you don't just start and then age stuff for 10 years and then start selling it, because what if your whiskey stinks, plus you need some income. Anyway, they only take about 16% of this new make that they make, and that is what gets put into the barrels. So they're extremely selective with what they decide to age, which I think does lend a lot to the quality of Macallan and why it's so popular. And actually, that reputation for quality has helped them to have the highest price points for any auctions of any whiskeys in a couple of different categories, like a single whiskey, whatever. They sold this one whiskey, which is called Macallan M whiskey. It's from their 1824 series, and it sold for $628,000, something like that. Which I did the math before writing the script out, and that's 13,000 of these bottles, which is just ridiculous. But you know what? If you can afford it, why the heck not, right? So anyway, there's not a whole heck of a lot more to talk about with the Macallan. There's no sordid past or anything really particularly interesting, I guess, about their history. But they have a ton of different bottles that I have every intention of trying as many of them as I can. So this gives me an opportunity to talk about a new series that I'm going to be doing on this channel, which I'm going to call Whiskey Dick Quickies, where when I get a new bottle of, say, Macallan, if I got the 18 or so, I don't need to do a 10-minute video on it. I can just do like a 2 or 3 minute video where I try it, tell you a little bit about how it tastes and looks and whatnot. And it'll be like a 2 or 3 minute video, just a quick little video. So I'll probably be doing some of those pretty soon, actually. I've got a couple of bottles that I went out and bought this last week that I'm looking forward to trying. Speaking of which, one of them is the 40 Creek Premier Barrel Select Whiskey. This is a Canadian whiskey. I haven't tried any Canadian whiskeys on this channel yet, so I'm going to be doing that one next time, and I look forward to it. I've actually never personally tried a Canadian whiskey, so they do things a lot differently there, so I'm going to talk a lot about that. If you've been enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. It'll just encourage me to make more of these, and enjoy your whiskey. Cheers.